The skies over the Black Sea don't lie. When Russia's Su-57, its crown jewel of fifth-generation aviation, scrambles to shadow America's B-2 Spirit, the most expensive and lethal stealth bomber ever built, you are no longer watching a military exercise. You are watching two civilizational bets placed directly against each other at 30,000 feet, and nobody in Washington or Moscow is blinking. This is not a news headline. This is a mirror held up to the entire post-Cold War order, and what it reflects is something most American media refuses to say out loud, that the unipolar moment is over, the rules have changed, and the Black Sea has become the most consequential body of water on the planet. Because what happens in those skies doesn't stay in those skies. It echoes from Crimea to Brussels, from Tehran to Beijing, from Missouri, where those B-2s lift off, to the war rooms in Moscow, where generals are no longer just posturing, they are calculating. And you, sitting right here in America, deserve to understand exactly what this moment means before the networks reduce it to a 30-second clip between commercial breaks. The first thing you need to understand, and I mean really understand it in your bones, is what these two aircraft actually represent, not just as machines, but as philosophical statements about how two very different powers see the future of warfare, the future of power, and the future of the world. The B-2 Spirit is not simply a bomber. It is America's most singular, most devastating declaration of military supremacy. Built by Northrop Grumman, it entered service in 1997, considered the second stealth aircraft after the F-117 Nighthawk, and it was primarily designed as a nuclear bomber. But what makes this aircraft terrifying in a way that transcends any single mission profile is its combination of characteristics that no other platform on Earth can match. Its radar cross-section is equivalent to a small bird despite a 172-foot wingspan, and it has the ability to deliver 40,000 pounds of munitions anywhere on Earth without refueling for up to 6,000 nautical miles. Think about that for a moment. A wingspan the length of half a football field, invisible to radar, capable of reaching any target on the planet, carrying enough destructive power to obliterate a city's critical infrastructure in a single pass. This is not a defensive weapon. This is a sovereign statement delivered at altitude, and it hasn't just sat in a hangar collecting dust as a deterrent. From Kosovo in 1999 to Iran in both June 2025 and February 2026, the B-2 has proven itself not merely as a deterrent, but as a live combat system. That is crucial context because it means when a B-2 appears over the Black Sea, Moscow isn't looking at a symbol. Moscow is looking at a weapon with a confirmed active combat record, a weapon that has actually burrowed through some of the most sophisticated air defense systems on the planet and come home clean. On June 22, 2025, during Operation Midnight Hammer, 7 B-2s executed what became the most consequential strike mission in the aircraft's entire operational existence, conducting multiple aerial refuelings during an 18-hour inbound leg, each aircraft carrying two GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, the 30,000-pound bunker busters that had never before been dropped in combat. When Iran's air defense systems, built with Russian and Chinese technical knowledge, could not even detect these aircraft, Russia took notes. Every Russian general took notes, because the message wasn't just for Tehran, it was for everyone watching. Now enter the Su-57, Russia's answer, Moscow's counterstatement. As of 2025, the Su-57 is one of only 6 crewed stealth aircraft in service anywhere on Earth, alongside America's B-2, F-22, F-35, China's J-20, and China's J-35. The Su-57 is Russia's sole fifth-generation fighter, and it carries enormous symbolic and strategic weight within the Russian military establishment. But here is where the story gets genuinely complex, because the Su-57 is a deeply fascinating aircraft that Western analysis almost always gets wrong in one of two directions, either wildly overhyping it as some kind of equivalent to American platforms, or dismissively writing it off as a glorified fourth-generation jet with a stealth paint job. The truth, as always, lives somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. The Su-57 fighters, which entered service from late 2020, have been fielded with AL-41F-1 engines, a derivative of technology that traces back to the Soviet AL-31F that powered Su-27 air superiority fighters since 1984, and its performance is below that of even the oldest fifth-generation fighter engine, the American F-119 powering the F-22. That is an honest technical reality. The engine technology gap is real. But here is what you need to hold in your mind alongside that technical reality. Gaps don't determine outcomes. History is littered with examples of technologically inferior systems defeating superior ones because of doctrine, geography, numbers, and political will. and Russia's military planners know this better than anyone. According to Russian military theorists and their concept of the initial period of war, Russian forces would focus on deterring NATO with the goal of preventing escalation into full-scale war, using targeted strategic operations to break the resolve of NATO and demonstrate resolve to its population. That doctrine matters enormously when you're trying to interpret what it means when Su-57s are being vectored toward a B-2 over the Black Sea. It is not merely an intercept. It is a message delivered in the language of air power. It says, "We see you, we track you, we are not afraid of your stealth, and we want you to know that." Russia has accelerated Su-57 deliveries, with new facilities opened in August 2024 specifically to allow for greater output. And the new Su-57M1 enhanced variant is expected to equip a high portion of Russian Aerospace Forces fighter units before the end of 2026. That timeline matters. That production ramp-up matters. Because what you're witnessing over the Black Sea isn't Russia deploying the full mature version of its fifth-generation capability. You're watching Russia deploy what it currently has while the upgraded, more dangerous version rolls off the assembly line. The Su-57M1, with its completely redesigned engine and enlarged airframe, represents a genuinely different threat calculus than what Western intelligence briefings have been working from. The new AL-51F1 engine will be the first clean-sheet fighter engine introduced into Russian service in over 40 years, and unconfirmed reports indicate the Su-57M1 may be able to cruise at speeds exceeding Mach 2 without using its afterburner. Supercruise capability without afterburner means longer range, lower heat signature, sustained high-speed intercepts, and that changes everything about how you model a potential engagement over a body of water as militarily saturated as the Black Sea. Now let's talk about the Black Sea itself, because to understand why this intercept matters so profoundly, you need to understand what this body of water actually is in geopolitical terms. This is not just a geographic feature. For Russia, the Black Sea is not merely a natural sphere of influence and domination. It is a strategic platform essential to its global ambitions, a prime example being the Mediterranean, where Russia's increased involvement in the Middle East has marked a significant expansion of its presence in warm waters, with its maritime reach in the Mediterranean heavily reliant on the operational strength of its Black Sea fleet. This is the corridor through which Russia projects power into the Middle East. This is the body of water over which Russian cruise missiles have been launched toward Syria, toward Ukraine, toward everything Moscow has decided it needs to reach. And now it is the airspace through which America is flying its most capable bomber. Not because the Pentagon is sightseeing, but because presence is a message, and the B-2 over the Black Sea is a message written in the most expensive ink in the world. The United States has been using this airspace consistently and intentionally. The US routinely carries out flights over international waters, and Moscow has responded more aggressively to these exercises, accusing the US of using reconnaissance drone flights over neutral waters in the Black Sea to help Ukraine strike Russian-occupied Crimea. That accusation, whether you believe it, dispute it, or place it somewhere in the complicated middle, tells you everything you need to know about how Moscow reads these missions. They don't see a B-2 or a drone over the Black Sea as a neutral assertion of freedom of navigation. They see it as an active part of an intelligence and strike-enabling architecture that is being used against Russian forces in real time. That perception, right or wrong, is what drives the scramble order. That perception is what puts Su-57 pilots in their cockpits and sends them climbing toward a B-2. Russia's defense minister ordered officials to prepare a response to US drone flights over the Black Sea in an apparent warning it may take forceful action to ward off American reconnaissance aircraft. And the history of these encounters isn't bloodless. In March 2023, a Russian Su-27 fighter jet damaged a US MQ-9 Reaper drone, causing it to crash into the Black Sea, the first direct clash between Russian and US forces since the Cold War. Read that sentence again. The first direct clash between Russian and US forces since the Cold War. We are not living in a normal era of geopolitics. We are living in an era where those words, the first direct clash since the Cold War, appear in a news report, get processed by the public for about 48 hours, and then get replaced by the next headline. But strategists don't forget. Pilots don't forget. And military planners in Moscow and Washington are building their contingency scenarios around exactly this kind of incident as a potential trigger. Now, what does it mean that Russia is deploying its Su-57 specifically to chase the B-2 rather than one of the older platforms? This is the question that should be keeping American defense analysts awake, because the Su-57 has something the MiG-31 or the Su-35 does not. It is a low observable platform. It has a reduced radar signature. It is, at least theoretically, harder for the B-2's crew and supporting electronic intelligence architecture to see coming. The Su-57 is touted for its ability to operate despite jamming and air defenses, and its core role within Russian aerospace doctrine against NATO includes shaping the initial period of war. So when Russia sends Su-57s after a B-2, it isn't just scrambling a fast jet to wave at a bomber. It is demonstrating a specific capability, the ability to locate, track, and close in on a low observable penetrating aircraft. That demonstration has intelligence value that extends far beyond any single intercept. It tells the Pentagon, we can find your stealth, we know where you are, and we have something that can reach you. Whether Russia actually can reliably track a B-2 Spirit is a question the public will likely never get a definitive answer to. The classified intelligence picture on both sides is too rich and too murky to reduce to a clean yes or no. But the mere fact that Moscow is willing to vector an Su-57 toward a B-2 in international airspace, making that intercept visible, making it documentable, making it a message, suggests a level of confidence that should give American strategists genuine pause. Russia's Air Force maintains over 1,100 combat-capable aircraft, including Su-57 stealth fighters and Tu-95 and Tu-160 strategic bombers. And while Russian commanders still emphasize quantity and mass, the forces that were poorly resourced during the initial Ukraine invasion have improved significantly, demonstrating the ability to learn from the battlefield and disseminate new concepts across organizations. A learning military is a dangerous military, a military that entered 2022 making catastrophic errors and has spent years grinding through real combat, adapting its doctrine, integrating electronic warfare lessons, updating pilot training. That military is fundamentally different from the one we assumed we understood. There is also the deepening strategic reality of what Russia and China are building together, because the Black Sea does not exist in isolation from the broader architecture of the multipolar world that is being constructed, sometimes clumsily, sometimes with extraordinary deliberate intent by Moscow and Beijing. In the past year, Russia and China conducted 2 combined bomber patrols from Russia, one over the Bering Sea and another over the Sea of Japan, marking the first time Chinese bombers departed from the same airbase with Russian bombers, the first time Chinese bombers entered the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone, and the first time Chinese nuclear-capable H-6N bombers took part in a combined patrol. This is extraordinary. Chinese nuclear-capable bombers entering the Alaskan ADIZ, that is American sovereign airspace functionally, alongside Russian bombers. The Black Sea Intercept and the Alaskan Patrol are part of the same strategic grammar. They are sentences in the same document, and the document reads, the post-1991 American dominance of every domain is being systematically challenged, and we are doing it together. What the American public deserves to grapple with, and largely hasn't been given the tools to grapple with by their media, is the question of what these incidents are actually building toward. Because the assumption that has governed American strategic thinking for 3 decades is that nobody would seriously contest US military supremacy in the air domain. The B-2 represented the apogee of that assumption, invisible, unstoppable, flying anywhere on Earth, delivering any payload, the aircraft that no adversary's air defense could reliably engage. The B-2 is the airborne leg of the United States nuclear triad, capable of dropping nuclear weapons anywhere in the world with in-flight refueling, and modernization has been focused on safeguarding its penetrating strike capability in high-end threat environments. But modernization is a reactive process. You modernize because the threat has evolved, and the threat, Russia's Su-57, China's J-20, integrated air defense networks, new electronic warfare capabilities, has evolved in ways that are not being honestly communicated to the American public. Here is the thing about the Black Sea Intercept that nobody wants to say plainly. The B-2 was built for a world where America was the only team on the field with 5th-generation technology. That world no longer exists. As of 2025, 6 different crewed stealth aircraft are in service across the United States, Russia, and China, and within a decade, that number will grow substantially. The monopoly on stealth, on true low observable aviation, has been broken. And when the monopoly on stealth is broken, the entire strategic calculus around the B-2 shifts, because the B-2's greatest strength has always been invisibility, and invisibility only works as a strategic asset when your adversary cannot see you. the moment they can, or the moment they credibly claim they can, which achieves many of the same psychological and diplomatic effects, the entire architecture of American power projection in contested airspace requires fundamental re-examination. The B-21 Raider is coming, yes. The next generation of American stealth is in development, and it will be more capable than the B-2. But the B-21 is not flying combat missions today. The B-2 is. And the B-2 is flying them over the Black Sea at a moment when the regional military balance has been transformed by years of war in Ukraine, by Russian adaptation and learning, by the deployment of the Su-57 in an actual combat theater, and by the growing coordination between Moscow and Beijing across multiple strategic domains. The US Air Force is integrating new anti-ship munitions onto the B-2, including the quick-sink maritime weapon tested in September 2025 in the Norwegian Sea, explicitly to meet rising adversarial naval challenges from Russia and China. That tells you how the Pentagon is thinking about the next phase of competition. Not just nuclear deterrence, not just deep inland strikes, but maritime power, sea control, the ability to sink ships from stealth bombers. The entire playbook is being rewritten at altitude. Russia's response, the Su-57 intercept over the Black Sea, is its way of writing back. It is saying, we read your playbook, we are writing our own, and we are willing to close the distance between our most advanced aircraft and your most advanced aircraft in international airspace to prove that we are not impressed, we are not intimidated, and we are not going away. Whether that confidence is fully backed by technical reality is, in one sense, secondary. The geopolitical effect of the demonstration is real, regardless of whether the Su-57 could actually have engaged the B-2 in any kind of kinetic exchange. What matters is that the era of unchallenged American air power dominance over every body of water and every theater on Earth is over as an uncontested proposition, and the Black Sea is where that fact is being written in contrails and radar returns for every intelligence agency on the planet to read.